Hey guys, we are recording this video session. I am going to project my screen shortly and just recap what we did the other day and proceed forward from that PowerPoint onwards. If you remember, we were doing chef exercise. We were practicing with chef solo. And if you go to this web page, let me go to that place first. So in here, you will see, where was that? In that location is where we were experimenting with chef solo version. And I'll scroll to that portion of the exercise which we completed the other day. And here's that exercise, like using chef solo or using chef in solo mode. That was the exercise we did. The idea that I wanted to discuss with you guys today is, instead of proceeding directly forward with the next step of using chef server from chef.io, which is what our intention is going to be, we'll be going that direction. But before we jump into that angle, I would like to actually briefly discuss this product, which is the Ansible product. And we have still people trickling in. I just saw Carrie coming in. Hi, Carrie. And we have, I think, a couple more. Yeah, they'll come in. So what I am briefly saying is that the last time we worked on an exercise using chef solo, our plan subsequently will be to use chef in a increasingly more complex fashion to understand how do we operate chef client in combination with chef server to manage a farm of servers. We will have multiple machines out there in multiple locations in multiple clouds. We should be able to operate and manage that infrastructure using this combination of solution set, this client server combination solution set. That is our plan. However, I think Travis suggested that we also get some flavor of Ansible before we jump into just one tool and get the idea of that particular tool in depth, which is, I think, I believe that approach is that there are so many tools. We have Chef tool, we have Ansible tool, and Puppet, and goes on, and the list goes on and on. The idea would be to understand one tool at depth, but then get a flavor of the others as we go along. And more importantly, the Ansible tool that I want to cover briefly today, just to give a similar example, or rather a flavor of understanding about how we can use Ansible in a situation that matters to us from a particular usage example perspective. And so when we don't have any guidance, when we are out in the wild alone and all we are left with is the internet, in that case, when you have nothing at your hand and you are suddenly dealing with a new tool like this tool called Ansible, for example, an unguided exercise, how would you complete? Unguided meaning there is the only thing you have is maybe this repository and nothing else. If that's the case, when you have GitHub, you have Ansible documentation, for example, docs.ansible.com. You have this documentation, you have GitHub source code, and nobody to help you out as to what do you want to, how do you do things? Nothing else is available. If that's a new tool thrown at you, how do you actually figure things out? So that is what I would like to demonstrate, which basically boils down to the fact that what I am going to talk about today about Ansible, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, slightly more, is it does not have anything written down in here at all. There is no guidance, no written steps, no nothing. All we have is the source code in this website called Ansible source code. And we also have some documentation that goes along with it, which looks like this. And we will focus on the core part like this. So we'll go to the core documentation that's available. Now, we kind of sort of understand what these tools do, but we have never actually used it in practice so far, at least in this bootcamp. So I would like to then take this example of a fresh out of the blue tool and understand how we can accomplish something with a given example. What I'm really trying to do with the outcome of the example that I would like to play with using Ansible today before we jump into the client server exercise later on. We will do that, don't worry. But I'm just taking a little bit digression to go towards using Ansible to get a flavor of how those things do, how that tool works and is different from the Chef tool that we just kind of sort of practiced a little bit in the previous example, in which we were able to set up a MySQL database server. We were able to set up our own password and have that whole thing configure in form of an idea or in form of a repository, in form of my design, my intention. I call that out in a Git repository, and then I ask Chef to implement that design in a machine out there somewhere in the cloud. We call this web number 2 dot whatever name that we can assign. So we applied that design to a machine and made things happen. Conceptually, similarly is not exactly similarly is what I intend to do, but just taking baby steps with Ansible is what I intend to do right now, just to get us flavor of what things are different between those tools. So my idea of this exercise, which I am going to do, is as you begin with some cloud and get a new machine, say M1 in cloud number 1, for example, you get this machine, which typically gets you the operating system and a root user and a root user and a password. That's typically what you get. And with that in hand, what we need to be able to do is sometimes we substitute this user, saying, you know what, this password I don't want to use. I want to use an SSH key. And I want to also do certain things to make sure that the security of that particular unit, that machine, is enhanced by basically disabling password access. I don't want people to be accessing that box at all using password. Not even me, not even the root user. I want to disable that. And I want to do certain kind of basic steps that are necessary for almost every machine out there that you just need to do. Those are basic sanity checks. And that is what we intend to accomplish with a fresh new machine that I want to get, for which I have created a different exercise that I think I have placed it here. Where is that? Maybe it is this exercise. And so that exercise is where I am configuring a new machine with certain things in mind. The things that I have written down in this short example are basically making sure that, first thing, you don't use root as the user to operate on that machine M1, but instead you use some other user, like alternative username. Because using root as a user to log on to machines is generally not considered a good practice. So we create an alternative user. I will probably use the name Cloud Genius as an example. You can use any name, but it should not be the root user, not the root user. We'll also want to be able to do certain things like, for this user that I just connected, I want to make sure that I am not using a password, but instead an SSH key pair with this user on a brand new machine like I get from this cloud. And what I also want to be able to do is disable even SSH access with an SSH key. Even if you have the key and you have the root user and the password, you still will not be able to connect using the root login permissions. Basically, I am preventing anybody to attempt to connect to that machine using root password. I also want to be able to disallow SSH key-based access for the root user. Disallow the SSH access using password for the root user. Not this, not this. I'm basically preventing any kind of access to the machine except one, which is, it is me who is going to log in using this name and a key pair that I have. So something like ID_RSA, that private key that I keep in my machine, that is the only way to log in. That's what I'm essentially trying to accomplish on a brand new machine that I will create. And make sure that I sanitize that machine from a security perspective using this example that you see written down here. And I will paste a link for this so that you have it along and you can play along with this exercise as I do it. But the way I will be doing it is to go through step by step, meaning we will execute that particular Ansible play. It's called a play as opposed to a run. When you run a cookbook, or rather cook a cookbook scenario, in Ansible, the language that people tend to use is play. So you play a playbook. You run a run book in case of Microsoft technologies. You apply the manifest in case of Puppet, in Puppet example. You cook using a cookbook in case of the chef example. And so those scenarios that you will see, run book, playbook, manifest, and cookbook, this is the Microsoft software. This is your Ansible software. So a variety of things basically accomplishing the same kind of method with different languages, different frameworks, different applications, and slightly varying designs. So that link that I just took from here, I have pasted it in Slack chat. Did I? Yes. What does for us is that we can actually start playing along with that particular example in our virtual machine. What I want to be able to do is bring that whole exercise right here inside our VM, and then get some machine out there in some cloud and start messing around with it from a security standpoint, hardening of that machine. Basically, what I'm trying to accomplish, this idea is called hardening. There are way more complex things you can accomplish for hardening your infrastructure in a variety of perspective. These are just only so many, I think 5 or 6 things that I'm beginning to do using that example. You can extend on this example on your own by adding certain characteristics or certain plays. You have to add a play to the playbook to make it bigger. And so when you add a play, you can see that it is doing one more thing to you, one more thing for your machine, for your infrastructure. And that is what we will be, building on play by play to see the evolution of that particular machine that I will get. And I will attempt to harden, make it difficult to hack, make it, slightly better than what it was before to begin with. And that's what you will see in this example. So I will now clone it. I'll say git clone, and that link, which is here, and I paste it. So the thing comes in down in my machine called Ansible example. I will go inside that folder. And this is something that is important. Whenever you want to do an exercise, you want to make sure that you are in the folder, like here, Ansible example folder. If you're not in the right location, things will not work for you. If you're like here, for example, and you try to run the Ansible example exercise, it may not work. I mean, it absolutely will definitely not work. You have to be there and then run the exercise. Otherwise, it will not. Similarly, in the previous example, we said this using Chef Solo, we have to be in that folder in order for that particular exercise to run, like I said, run Chef Solo, kind of those steps. You have to be there. If you're not there, it won't work. Having said, let us first thing read what this thing is. So this example that I have prepared for is I want to read that, and I want to do not disturb myself. Otherwise, I'll keep getting connection requests. So I will clone that thing. I think I already did. So let's go open it now. I cloned it. I am going to look at that folder inside in an Atom editor. So right here on this side, Atom folder, opening it up in Atom and examining the contents. Now that Atom editor will open up. When it does, I want to see what it's inside, and I see that it has this thing and this thing and this thing. 3 things are there. So let's go understand what those 3 things are. And they have conceptually similar ideas as compared to Chef example. The first thing is this Ansible.cfg file, which is basically Ansible configuration. Now this configuration describes, where will I go and apply my play or play my playbook. So that configuration needs to be defining a thing called hosts. Where will I apply my design, my idea, my desire? I need to go target somebody, right? In the chef example, we had this thing called, what was it called? It was called nodes folder, right? Nodes folder. Maybe not this, my cloud. Yeah, was it my cloud? Yeah. In the my cloud folder, you remember this folder called nodes existed, and that node folder was the target where chef applied. So in the case of Ansible example, we have a file called no hosts. So very, very similar to this nodes idea is this file called hosts, which is where the target is. So here I have specified a target. And in that target, you will see that I have called out a bunch of things. Like, for example, the name of the machine. This is, again, strictly not necessary, but you can put a machine name for ready reference if you like. The next one is the IP address of that box that I'm going to deal with. I need to change this because that IP address that I will get or the new box that I want to mess around with or harden will be different, not this IP address. You will also see a couple more things here. For example, I'm specifying an Ansible user, Cloud Genius. Now this is also not going to be true to begin with because a cloud company has no idea what Cloud Genius is. They know that there's a predefined name like root. So that's what I need to begin using with, root. Or sometimes if I'm using Amazon Cloud, they will give me a name Ubuntu. Or sometimes if I'm using some other operating system, Amazon might give me a name EC2 user. And depending on that, I need to make sure that I change the way the first connection needs to happen. So like this, I'm going to go to DigitalOcean to begin with. So I know that they will give me the name root as the login name. And I already have a reference to my private key file. It's sitting in that location. And that is how this host configuration is defined, which is conceptually analogous to the node file in Chef. So here I'm targeting a bunch of machines that I want to address, and I can add more lines like this. I can say copy more and paste, paste, paste like that. I can have a bunch of nodes collectively target on the same play. It'll run the same thing play by play. And what is a play? A play is written down inside a playbook. What is a playbook? Playbook looks like this. It's a YAML file. And here is a play. This segment is one play. The line number 17 through 22 is another play. There are tasks defined, like here, tasks. And this is play number 1. Actually, they don't number it. This is a one play, this is another play, and here is more. So the play by play, we need to execute this thing. But before we execute, I want to understand what this thing is. So that's a playbook. That's how it looks like from a starting example. And here is how your host references will look like. I'm going to delete most of them except one. Keep the root reference right here because that's what I intend to use to begin with. And I will later on change it because I want to actually change the user. And this is where I'm specifying in that particular file. The name I have used is hosts, this host name, this file name. And I can rename it to whatever I like. For example, I can call it the inventory of my hosts, like all the inventory of machines I have in my control. In this particular example, I call that particular file inventory. And in fact, that has been the new nomenclature people have been playing along with, as opposed to calling it a host file. People have been using the name inventory very recently with Ansible as a tool. So people have changed that nomenclature, for example, recently. So depending on the Ansible version, so the version of Ansible I think I have installed is, okay, did not tell me that. I should say -- version. And it should give me the version is 2320. So with version 2.4, which just came out like a couple weeks ago, maybe a little bit older than that, the name of host file has been changed to inventory. So the way they will refer to it as inventory equals inventory equals inventory. Or I think that, again, there is a typo. So, or you can keep the name hosts here on this right side, or call it whatever, ABC, and save it and rename this to be ABC, like that. So it's basically a file reference, and I called it ABC, and that is the collection of my inventory, which is called out in line number 2 in the configuration. That's how you specify configurations, and these things are provided in the documentation, by the way, right here. Go to Ansible documentation and read here, and you will find inventory. So you have to search for it, and again, they don't have a search engine built in. So what do? You go to Google and search their site. So you say docs Ansible and inventory, and that should give you a reference to inventory right there. So it's popping up, and it tells you how to call out an inventory of machines that you want to deal with. So here is an example. So you can call it, this machine, I want to call it the mail.example.com. I have a couple of web servers. I call them these guys. I have a couple of database servers. These are the guys. These are the boxes. And so that's our classification. Now you can put this same thing in two different types of file formats. One is this ini style file format, which is Windows. The origin is Windows driver file systems called ini files. The other modern method is a YAML-based version of the same thing. So here, you have the mail.example.com written down as here, as a YAML file syntax. It has children. The children are web servers by the name foo and bar. There are more children by the name of DB servers, and they are 1, 2, and 3. So basically the same thing written down in a YAML file structure. You can write it either way you like. Ansible supports both. Similarly, you will also find this reference of inventory, which I don't see. I did not locate it, but it will complain. If the name needs to be changed, it will complain about it. So we'll run it and find out. So here, I am going to keep using the word host file like before and call this ABC. That doesn't matter. And I have two more things to check here. One of them is host key checking. I'm saying false. This is basically to ask me for a prompt that say, are you sure you want to connect to this new machine that you do not know or never connected before, because this machine is new to you, and your reference to the known host references in this particular file, which is ~/.ssh/known host references. If you don't have any entry here in that particular file, it will say that I don't know. So do you still want to connect? And if you want to suppress those, you say false. And when you say false, those questions will just go away. It's a good thing to be in a test setup, but when in production, you want to put this in true. Similarly, there is this idea of deprecation warnings I have set to false. You can keep them to be true because it will complain a whole lot now, saying, hey, you should change this, change that, something like that, because the version changes will require you to change certain things. So I want to be able to run with these things as true. I also want to remove my known host file so that it actually complains a whole lot, like that. And then I will basically, I killed my known host file, so I don't know any hosts currently in this machine. What I also want to be able to do is play this playbook and understand what this will do for us and identify how do we go and execute this. So to execute a playbook like that, and I want to run it step by step, you can, by the way, in one shot, we can run the whole playbook pretty much like this: Ansible playbook, Ansible playbook, and then give it a reference to the file itself, like user.yaml. And you execute, and it executes. I just executed, and it says, yeah, I'm going to connect to this machine, but I didn't even create a machine. So it is trying to connect to somebody else's machine right now, and it's asking me, are you sure you want to connect? And I'm going to say no, and I'm breaking it. But you need to have your own machine, not this random machine that you're attempting to connect. That's not the point. So you can run it pretty much like this: Ansible playbook, user.yaml. So calling a playbook invoking it will automatically look at the configuration like this and look at the host file, attempt to connect to all the hosts in that file. I have one example, which is this example called Ansible example with this IP address, which is not mine. I don't have that IP address right now. It is somebody else's, and this guy is trying to connect to it. It's a bad idea. I should not be connecting. So I'm going to say no and break it like that. I interrupted, Control C. I should actually have a machine in place before I connect to some random person's machine. So let's go create one. I'll say DigitalOcean, give me a machine, please. And here I log in and log in and log in and put in my token, and I'm in. Once I'm in, I need to get a droplet. So here I create a droplet, and I want to make sure that these guys have my SSH key pair. So I'm choosing Ubuntu $5 droplet and selecting San Francisco, choosing this key pair, which I think I've given it the last time. And this one, I will name it as Ansible example. Again, this is not necessary. This is strictly not necessary. Choosing a host name is not required. You can choose whatever name, but it's just for our purposes, I just gave it a name. Now this, when you go like this, it will give you ability to connect to that machine with root user and your private key. If you don't select that, certain clouds don't like it. Other clouds are okay. Like this particular cloud is just fine. If you don't select a key pair, what they will do is generate a password and email it to you. That works. I mean, that's how simplicity is the beauty of this design of this cloud. If you don't choose a SSH key pair right now, it's totally fine with this cloud. In Amazon cloud, if you don't select, you're screwed. Same with other clouds, most of the clouds. If you don't select a key pair, there is no way to connect to it. With this cloud, I can get away without actually choosing a particular key. So I'll just receive an email with the password, which is fine. I can choose either way I like. I think I think you understand what this point of SSH key is, but this is tied to your root user. With that said, I'm going to proceed and create that box. I'll get an IP address. I'll take that IP address from here, and it's going to come back to me in like a few seconds. I'll grab that IP address, put it in my configuration file, in the host file, basically. So here, somewhere in that location, I want to grab it and remove this reference and put the correct IP address, which is available somewhere here. So that's the IP address. So I got it now. I'm going to put it right there. And this is the correct IP address. So I'm going to save it and close it. And close this configuration and look at the play. This play is what I want to actually play. Excuse me. In that play, what I want to be able to do is to help you understand that I need to create a user. So that is my first play. This is my first play right there. And in that play, what I'm doing is creating a new user in my machine out there. In this machine, this one. This machine doesn't have a user called Cloud Genius quite yet. So we will create one through the playbook scenario. So here's the play for that. Let's go understand what that play will do. So it says, add a user called Cloud Genius. And then it also says how to do that. So this part is how to accomplish that. Here, this is just a name in line number 14, just a name, just to identify what this particular play is going to be doing for us. And the next one is the action needed. The action is this definition. It's the user action. This has a very specific meaning in Ansible. The name user has a specific meaning in Ansible, and that meaning is written down here in the documentation, right here. And we can search for it. The best way to search is, again, Google, Ansible user, and there it comes. And so here is a user module. This user module basically is useful for managing user accounts. So under the hood, it will do whatever is needed to make a new user, but you need to go minimally specify what user you want to create and what password you like to have that user associated with. And that's this module. By the way, Ansible has like tons of modules, and here is the module index. On the left side, you can see the module index and all the modules related to a variety of clouds and clustering and commands and cryptography and databases and files and identity. It goes on and on. It's a long list. And that's a long list of various modules in Ansible built in, ready for us to consume, ready for us to use. To begin with, I'm using this I'm using this user module right now. This is a module in Ansible, as you see in the documentation. If you now look at this Ansible user module, its primary purpose is to manage the user accounts. I am going to create a new user called Cloud Genius. So I need to use this module to let Ansible do it for me in my first play. And therefore, I'm going to quickly look at the examples right there. And it says, here's how you do it. You can basically create a user by the name John D with a specific UID if you like, and a primary group of admin. So you can basically look at the syntax provided in this example and implement that in your example. So we can go and compare and contrast as to what we have in our example with what this suggestion is from the documentation perspective. If you now, having seen this quick user module example usage, we'll go and compare it with our own example in this YAML file that I have for a start. I do the same thing, by the way. I have the user module being invoked. I'm passing along a name, Cloud Genius, passing along a password. I don't know what that thing is, so I need to understand what this thing is. I don't yet know. And then shell. What is the shell command prompt that I will have that particular user receive? That is called out. I am putting that user in the group called root and appending that user in the list of users. So that's the longish explanation of that usage of the user module in Ansible in my first play. However, I still missed out on what this thing is. Like password equals what again? That's the part that I want to understand. So this is basically a variable reference, this part. I'm passing along a variable in runtime, and I'm saying that I need to assign a password to this new user I'm creating, for which I need to type in the password. Now, from a security standpoint, you don't pass a password in clear text. So what do? You encrypt it. And so you generate a hash, or rather, it's called a shadow password for a chosen password like you have in mind. And I like to have this shadow password in my mind. So I want to create a password 1, 2, 3 for my user. So I want to create a shadow password for it. So I will say, OpenSSL, create me a shadow password. For the actual password is going to be 1, 2, 3, and close it. So this will generate a shadow for me that I can consume and use in the play. So I will say enter, and it generates a shadow. This is the shadow that I want to grab, like that. And I copy that and put that in the variable reference in line number 10 right here. So I paste it. So now I have the shadow in place. This is the shadow password that I want to transmit to the user module, so that when the user gets created, it will have the password that I chose in my command line, which happens to be 1, 2, 3. And that's what you are basically protecting yourself from letting other people know what the password is, by creating a hash and embedding the hash in your command in usage of the user module, and creating a new user like this using the user module in Ansible. So I want to now execute that play, the first one. So I will save this playbook, quit, and come back here and say, hey, Ansible, can you please run my play? only the first play. So I want to call this out very clearly that, I want to do it step by step. So I'll say step and walk me through play by play, step by step. So only do the one step and then I will break it just to help us understand what's going on. So I'm going to run this in a step by step fashion and say, okay, do it. So it says, should I now run the play called configure a user, for which the task will be add a user called Cloud Genius, yes or no? And I say, yeah, go ahead, do that. So I'll say, yes, please. So it says, okay, I am going to, basically do this action for you using the user module, and I want to connect to this host because that's what is specified in the host configuration here, which has a reference to a file called ABC, which this ABC file is actually specifying me this IP address for this machine name called Ansible example, which is called out in the playbook at the very top, right there. So you want to apply this play on the machine called Ansible example, and you want to configure the user. So that's the first step that you saw it is prompting us to do. And then it says add user Cloud Genius. This is the play part right here, add user Cloud Genius. This play comes into action, which attempts to first make a connection to this host, and it is able to figure it out because that's how the configuration is called out here. That I need to go to the host file called ABC and read that file to get the IP address, and then I attempt to connect to it. And when I'm connecting, I should make sure that it is connecting using the user provided in that configuration, which happens to be root to begin with. Right now, it doesn't know Cloud Genius, so I need to connect using the root login. So I'll say, yeah, go ahead and connect. So I'll say yes. So it's connecting. It failed, I think, because of something happened here, which is Python not found. And this is a it's a known issue. So I understand what's going on. What is going on is, in our scenario, this machine is Ubuntu 16.04 version. Now, in this particular Ubuntu version, they do not have Python version 2 built in. I think this deserves some discussion. So the idea is that Ansible, first of all, Ansible is in flux. Flux meaning it's evolving, changing. So Ansible expects that everybody has Python 2. Now, Ubuntu, the machine that we just took, Ubuntu 16.04, it has Python 3. It doesn't have Python 2. So you can basically operate in two different ways. Yes, Python 3, no Python 2. So you can operate on this machine in two different ways. One way is to make sure that somehow this machine gets Python 2, which is kind of a lame approach. But you can go connect to the machine, install Python 2 in there, and then things will go all fine. The better approach is to, ask Ansible, hey, just stop using this one. Instead, use this one. I would like you to use Python 3 because that's the newer version of the language. And so why don't you just use that Python 3 instead? And that is what we have to provide to Ansible, to let Ansible know that, you know what, wake up, the world has moved on. And everybody uses Python 3 these days. So, if I'm using a later version of operating system, you should also use later version of Python languages, not the older version. But that's unfortunately the current default. So we have to somehow communicate with Ansible in our configuration. Hey, please use this. So for which we have to go back, do another Google search. We'll say Ansible Python 3 interpreter. And so there will be a line coming up right there, which will tell us how to do it. And here is the way to do it. Where is that? There. So this line should do it like that. So I need to grab that line. I'll take it to my configuration. In here, I need to call out, hey dear, you connect to this box using this interpreter, Python 3 interpreter. And I need to, of course, put all these things in one line. So I'm just moving it all the way to the end like that. So it is there on one line. It's just not visible on the later portion. Later, I can go there and show it to you. You saw it like right there. Python 3 is the interpreter I would like you to use. So then I save this updated configuration and quit that window, back here, and clear my screen and run it again. It says, do you want to run the playbook? I say yes. And then say, do you want to add the user Cloud Genius? And I said, yeah, go ahead and do it. Please add the user Cloud Genius to super users, please. That's the second play. This is a second play. The first play already finished. It succeeded with Python 3 connection because we changed our configuration to allow and ask our Ansible implementation to connect to this box using Python 3 language. Right there, Python 3. And so it succeeded. It actually finished our first play already. The second play is what it is asking us for permission. Here is the second play. It's beginning, about to begin. And I will say, you know what? Hold on, break it. I don't want to do the second play. I just want to make sure that the first play succeeded. And so this is the play that I want to make sure that it actually did. So I have the step function loaded in my playbook. So I want to actually break this right now because I have completed my first play. I want to verify whether the first play succeeded. And so I will break this right now. Okay, break it. And now connect to the machine and find out whether actually Ansible added a user called Cloud Genius in there or not. How do I do that? I'll go to my IP address and go sniffing. Is there a user? Is there a user created called Cloud Genius in that IP address? Let's go check. If it does succeed, if it actually says that it created, right? You see that it says add user Cloud Genius, it succeeded. It says I changed something on the machine, and that's a good sign. So that means I should be able to just connect to my box using the name Cloud Genius and the password, which is 123. I should be able to succeed in that. So I'll just say, okay, connect. So it says permission denied public key. Because in our configuration, in our machine, it doesn't allow password-based access. That's what you are noticing, is that it attempts to connect, but doesn't actually allow. So this was not a correct verification of whether that user got created or not. We still don't know whether the user exists or not. So let's go enter the machine with a root login, like this. And there we will find out that we have a connection established. Now here, let us see if we can change our user to another user called Cloud Genius, or just a simpler way to examine and verify that will be to say, let's see, password, right there. And at the very end, you will find it created an entry right there. It's called Cloud Genius entry in the user's password, in the etc passwords file. Has a new user added on, appended to the bottom, called Cloud Genius, created for us. And it did its thing, which we expected it to do. It did not allow us to connect. We can modify certain characteristics of this machine to allow us to go SSHD connection, which I think is in this location. So this again is, let me just confirm what that location is. We have to modify SSHD configuration. So we can allow password accesses. Currently it is not allowed. So we'll go cd ssh sshd config. This might sound crazy to hack those files like off the blue. Right now I'm doing it to illustrate a point. But what I'm doing is, where is password authentication? So password authentication is currently set to no. I'm going to modify that to say yes. And I just did that piece. So I said allow password-based authentication, and I save. Yeah, so I saved that. I modified my machine configuration to illustrate this point, that can I connect And I still cannot connect because there are probably more configuration checks that are in place to prevent me from connecting like this.
I think you need to
And
recycle.
so that is something that I can go and further hack my machine to allow me to get access to that box in a password-based method. But I think I can probably either skip on this and continue our play. I think that's a better approach. Because this kind of hacks doesn't actually help anybody. So I'm leaving this as it was. I'm basically reverting the change I made because there are lots of checks that need to happen that I may not remember offhand off the cuff. And that is what I am trying to revert the change I just made. Go to password authentication and I am permit empty passwords. No, password authentication was changed to no to disable tunnel cleared password and say no. So I basically modify the file as it was to begin with, come out of that and clear and attempt to connect with root, and it works. Come out and attempt to connect with Cloud Genius, and it should fail. Permission denied. That's how the initial design was. I tried to make a digression to illustrate a point where that did not work because I don't have clear memory of what exactly needs to change. It's hard to remember all these things. So now let's go second play, the play number 2, which is what we were running again, play by play, write that. And so we'll say, okay, run it step by step again. It says I'm not in the right folder. You saw me doing in the wrong way. I should be inside that folder in order for me to run the play and play by play again. It says, do you want me to run the playbook? And I say, yes. That's the configure a user first thing here on the very top. And I'll say yes. Then I'll say, do you want me to add the user Cloud Genius? It already did because it already existed. So it did not change anything. The last time you saw this said, I changed and created this user called Cloud Genius. And you saw the creation part. Now the next action, the next play is what is going on right now, this play. Now what this play does is, let's go read the play itself to understand what it's going to do. And in English, it is basically providing super user permissions to that particular user. It is allowing this user to escalate its privileges to a super user level, and that requires this configuration change. So it is using, this play uses another module, by the way. And you can read the name of the module. It is called line in file module. That line in file is a special construct defined by Ansible as a module, which basically does exactly what you think it will, line in file. And let's go understand what it actually does. So we'll go Google Ansible, change a line in a file. That's what it does, basically, line in file. And so here is the link that we get, the very first one, and you find it, the module reference called line in file. And it exactly does what you think it does, which is find a file, and in that file, find a line, and in that line location, change, modify, edit, delete, do whatever you want in that file for that particular line, and then come back saying, I did it. So that's what this particular module does. It is very, very useful for configuration changes. Like I just modified manually, say password authentication, no, to password authentication, yes. I made that change by hand. That's kind of sort of thing that we need to be able to do in the scenario that you're looking at using the line in file module. That's the idea. Now let's go look at some examples provided here. So examples, click, and some examples, very, very beautifully written documentation, by the way. I really like it. The examples are very clearly given. So line in file, which file? In this file. In this file, I want you to change something that used to be like this, make it like this. So there's a regular expression defined. Look for something that begins with the word SE Linux equal sign. This tilde is basically the beginning point. It's not tilde, it's caret. This caret is a beginning point. And if the line begins with SE Linux then that's the line I want you to pick and make it enforcing. You want to make enhance the security Linux configuration. You want to enforce it. So you want to modify this particular configuration file containing that line that begins with SE Linux equal sign and something else after that, maybe disabled, not enforcing something else. You want to modify that particular line and call it enforcing. I am going to enforce SE Linux configuration in this particular play called line in file. Now there are some changes noted here. Before 2.3, the option destination file or name was used instead of path. But after 2.3, the path word is used. So that's the change that is being made in 2.3. Before it was destination, dest file, or name. Subsequent to that, 2.3 version of Ansible, the name is path. That we have to cross-check in our example. In my example, it is destination right there, which means I need to modify that line and say path, pretty much like this, P-A-T-H. And this is primarily because the version of Ansible that I am currently using is newer. It is not the one that was there when this exercise was created. So I need to modify the path reference according to the documentation provided. It says that right here, instead of path. Before that, 2.3, but I am using 2.3, so I should use the word path, which I just modified. Back here, line in file is exactly what I am also doing. What I'm doing is looking at this path and looking at this regular expression, looking at a file called sudoers, and in that file, I want to look for a line called Cloud Genius space all, and then replace that with this line, Cloud Genius all equals all and no password all. This is a specific syntax to allow passwordless authentication for super user escalation for the Cloud Genius user. Now, since I made a modification to this segment, I need to break this particular play and run it again. So I break it and run it again like that. And the add a user piece is already done, so there is no action expected. In this, it was already taken care of, so it did not ask me for permission for yes or no. Now this task is what is expected to perform. So we can see that this Cloud Genius super user scenario, it will allow and add Cloud Genius to the super user group. What does this actually do? Let's go see that in another window. We'll go connect to that machine out there. And in there, we'll go cat etc sudoers. And you will find here that there is absolutely no reference to Cloud Genius in this file. That is expected because Cloud Genius is not added anywhere else apart from the user definitions in etc password. So this sudoers file currently looks like what you see here. It has no reference whatsoever to the word Cloud Genius. And that is what this thing will change now. As soon as I say yes, it is going to modify that particular file just like that, as you say here. Look for this line with this regular expression and make it like this, line 21. So make a line like this show up, make it present. I'm declaring a state of that line should be present. Whether that line exists or not, make it so happen that that particular file, line number 19, contains a line 21. Specifically this portion. This portion should be created, and the state of that particular line in that file should be present. So make that thing happen. That's what this action will do as soon as I say yes. So I said yes, and it is again doing something for me and waiting for me to do the next action. So it actually reported something changed. Let's go see what it changed. So we'll go and clear my screen and say, show me the sudoers business. Show me the sudoer file right there. And it shows that line right there because that was just added. Ansible added that line last line because we said so in our play. Here, add that line in that file and make the state of that line in the file to be present. You can also delete a line from a file by calling the state absent. It's the state declarations you're doing. You want the state to be there or not there, or you present or absent, you can call it out. Make sure that it's another way of saying the same thing is delete that particular line from that file, or create that line in that file. That the action-oriented declaration of create this or do that or delete this. In Ansible and in Chef, what you are worried about is not how to do, but what needs to be done. So you declare states. I would like this to happen. How you do it, your problem, not mine. And so that's essentially the way of thinking here is that you're calling out in that line in file module. I want to make sure that in that path location, this line is present. How you add, your problem, not mine. And that's what just happened in this add user to Cloud Genius to super user list. Now Cloud Genius gets a super user permission in that machine because of this line addition that we just did here. I will break this again and run the play again one more time because I want to do the next thing. The third play. The third play is going to add our public key to the remote user. What does that boil down to? So let me break this first. So breaking it and clearing it. And what it means in the third play is add my public key. What is my public key? My public key is this one. This key. I would like to add this public key to the Cloud Genius user in this machine. What does that do? Which machine? Hold on. I think I exited from there. Let me go in again. Oh, I am already in that machine. So this is the remote machine. Okay. Yeah. This is the remote machine with that IP address, as you can see. So in that machine, if you go to the user called Cloud Genius, in there, you will find there is a folder called .ssh, and maybe it doesn't exist yet. So if you go to that folder, you will not find a .ssh folder because it has never been attempted to log in. So nobody logged in as a Cloud Genius user yet. But when you do, you will expect to see a file called authorized keys. You can see that in our local machine, or rather remote machine, I should say here. Not in this location, but for the root user, you can find the same thing. So on that machine, if you go to the root user, which is where we are, the root user is /root. And here you will find a file called authorized keys inside this folder. So we go inside that folder, and there is a file called authorized keys, and this key matches this public key for the root user. This key was injected into this machine. You can see match it line by line, IJSVYY. IJ. This matches line by line. This was injected by the DigitalOcean company for the root user. So the current location we are in the root user, that's not what we actually want to use. We want to use the Cloud Genius user, which is in this location, /home/Cloud Genius. That location is the user's home folder, the Cloud Genius user's home folder. We need to go in that location and place this authorized keys file should contain our public key, this key. So we are basically injecting our key, not for the root user, but for a different user. That's the action that we want to accomplish so that we can connect to this machine using SSH. So I'm adding SSH public key to the user in that location in the remote machine, for which I'm going to use another module. This module is called authorized key. And you can, of course, see that module right here in Ansible documentation. You can go and check it out. It is easy as Google search. So Ansible authorized keys. No, I typed wrong. Ansible authorized. And you can see how to use it. So there is a module for that. For every action that you expect to do on a machine, there is a module available. written down by somebody in Ansible and in Chef and in every other tool you can think of, because that's how these tools become useful, is that they're making your life simple. So you don't have to go do these things by hand. You can do it on a scale, and they simplify from a declarative perspective, where you decide what's the outcome you expect. Like, I would like my key to be present in that location in the authorized keys file. So I call it out like that, execute the authorized keys module in a play in Ansible, and I read the documentation, I understand the synopsis, and I go look at the examples. When I look at the examples, then I go look at exactly what I want. Here is a name defined. Set the authorized key, and you take it from a file. The file is home Charlie whatever, and that file, you look it up and you put it in the Charlie user, make the state of that file present, and the key to use is this file. That's how simply it is written. And you can see this example, like I have taken, copied it, go to my play and compare it. I don't have that many things in my example, but this also works. It's a simpler representation of that example. So if you go compare it with what they have there in the full-blown example scenario, compare it with my scenario here, it is conceptually the same thing. So let's go see what their example is and how does it compare with what I have in our playbook. So here in the example that they have and the example I have, conceptually similar, except I don't have the state declaration. Here, I say authorize keys, I call out the user, and the key reference, I'm looking up a file stored in my current folder in .ssh idrsa.pub. And what is missing in here is the state declaration. So I should add that. I think it's a good thing. So I'll say state colon, or rather equals in my notation. See, my notation also is a little bit older. Present. They keep changing the notations and structures, and this will, equal will work. Or you can say colon, that also works. It changes to green color in YAML syntax, but I just go with equal for now. So I'm declaring my state to be present. The user is not Charlie, but Cloud Genius. The key is the reference to that file inside stored in my location, which is this key, public key stored. I want to run this play. As a consequence, you will see that the remote user, the called Cloud Genius in remote machine, will have the key in place. So now we'll run this play in our Ansible example. I am in my local machine. I'm in the correct folder. I'm going to run the play again, pretty much like step by step. The first step, do you want me to run the playbook? I say yes. And it says adding the user Cloud Genius, it's already done. Adding the user to super users sudoers list, and I'll say yes, please do that. It's already done, by the way. So it says okay, green color is already done, no change made, no change made. It says now is the next action, add SSH public key to the user Cloud Genius in the remote machine. Is that what you want to do? And I say yeah, exactly. I want my public key, which is stored in this file. I want that file to go in the Cloud Genius user on the remote machine. That's what I want to establish, and that is exactly what I'm going to say yes to it. So when I say yes, it is going to do exactly that, and it did. It did. Now let's go check whether it actually did or not. So I will open another terminal and connect it already to that machine out there in the cloud. So I am already connected to the remote computer, the root user on this location, in the remote location. And I am already, by the way, in the home Cloud Genius folder, which is a good thing. I just list out what folders I have, including the hidden ones. And I see that a new folder got created called .ssh. And in there, I will check what do I have inside. And you will find that this Cloud Genius user has the authorized keys added. So let's go cat the authorized key. and you will find it is the same one we just added. What does that translate to? It means I can get out from here back to my computer, which is my local workstation. And this play that is going on forward, I'm going to break the play one more time. And this time I have my Cloud Genius key in the remote location. I should be able to now connect to that remote location using SSH and Cloud Genius and all that, pretty much like the one I tried like this. This should succeed because the Cloud Genius user is created. It has super user permissions also, and my public key is also authorized in that remote computer for this user, Cloud Genius user. So it knows that I can. So if I now attempt, I should get in, and I got in. And I am the Cloud Genius user. And I also have the ability to escalate myself into a super user, pretty much like this. Because I am a sudoer, or rather, this is the way to write it. Sudoer, super user capability. I already got that for myself in play number 2, and I added my public key to the Cloud Genius user in play number 3. So now that I have super user capabilities as Cloud Genius user, and I'm not logging in as root, I should, basically prevent everybody else from logging in as root. And so from this point onwards, I would like to log in as Cloud Genius, not as root. So that's the next play. The next play is disallow root access. Even when you have SSH key in place, you want to disallow. And that's this particular play like that. This play will do that for us. But let's understand what this is doing. So there is another module being used. It is called line in file module, which is the same one we have used before, which is, in our example, line in file example, previous page, maybe, or maybe this page is line in file. And this, you see this, how it works example. There are more examples here. We are just using this example in our play in this portion. The play finishes at that point. And there is an additional step here, this notify step. We should understand what that does from a play perspective. So this segment, line number 30 through 37, is what I'm going to read now. And here what you'll notice is that it says disallow root SSH access. What it's going to do is prevent the root user from accessing. And I think we should do that because now that we have our Cloud Genius user created with that user added on as a super user, and also our public key put in the right spot for the Cloud Genius user in the remote machine, we should disallow root now. Now to enable that to happen, we should, of course, use the line in file module to modify this particular file. Look for a regular expression called permit root login. And it correctly says yes. So I want to make it no. This no is what we want to add to that current location in this file. And if you go check that file right now, I am in that location. So I should just go to etc sshd and then look at that file called sshd config and look for, what was the name, permit root login. And pattern not found because I'm not typing it properly. Permit root login, and it says permit root login is yes. I want to strictly change this to no, like something like this. It's a read-only file, so I don't want to change it, but I can manually change it to. I can manually change it to say no, do not allow root login. I can go manually hacking like this and delete the yes. I can do this manually, but doing it manually on 1,000 machines is a bad thing, and it's kind of impossible to do it by hand. You might make mistakes. So that's the action we expect, like to call it no. But I'm not saving it, by the way. I am going to quit without saving. So my file is still saying yes, permit the root login.
Hey, Nilesh, this is Tammy.
Login should still say yes, and that's good. We'll leave it like this.
Can you hear
come
me,
out
Nilesh?
of the box into my local workstation and make a change in our DEST reference, because the new method of writing
I can hear you.
version 2.3 is
I can
path.
hear you.
This path,
I don't think Nilesh
not
can.
destination. So we need to change it to
He
path.
needs to recycle
and save.
SSHD.
With that updated
Oh well, it can
definition
wait. No big deal.
for the path specification, this is the file that I want to change. And I want to look for the word permit root login. It might say yes, it might say no, it might be silent. The file, that line may be missing, whatever the case may be. Just look for that line in that particular file and make it no. That no. Make it so that it is saying no to root login. And that no state should be present. This is what the state declaration is going to do, is to make sure that that particular line in that file should say no root login, please. And then when you change a configuration in SSH daemon, you should notice that it will not going to work until that configuration is reloaded. Do you modify that configuration for SSH daemon, you need to restart SSH daemon before the configuration takes effect. And now I remember the exact error that I ran into when I was trying to hack into creating a password-based access to user Cloud Genius. I did not restart the SSH daemon. I modified the configuration by hand, but then it still did not work because you're supposed to restart the daemon, which I forgot. Now it reminds me that I need to restart the daemon right there. And that is how you call it out. In fact, that restart is written like a handler. And that is another name and another play by itself. It uses a play called service module. You can also go and identify the service module, Ansible service module. And this module helps you start, stop, restart services. And so here is the module. And in that module, you can see what it does. And I think I went to the wrong direction. So Ansible module for services. And you can make it a little bit big and see some examples of it. And you can see that you can identify service by name, say service by the name HTTPD. I want the state to be started. It's very, very similar to the chef examples that we did before, a couple sessions ago. I would like my Apache server to be running, active, installed. I'm declaring state. The same thing here. I am declaring my state for the SSH service to be restarted. That's the handler I'm creating in form of a separate play that looks like this. It's a separate handler, and I'm writing it as a separate handlers because I'm restarting SSH multiple times. And that's how you write it, separate handler to run repetitive actions. So this particular action of restarting SSH, you need to do it in a couple of different times. You just write a separate handler for that and call it whatever you like. Like in this example, I'm calling it the restart SSH handler. And I'm notifying that handler to run. When I do that, it restarts SSH service. And that is what is needed when you modify this configuration that I manually forgot. That's a problem with people. People forget. Machines don't. And therefore, anything that is automatable, you automate. And you leave the people to do the job that they are best at, which is to think, as opposed to become a zombie and do rudimentary grunt work. And so that's how you should think about people versus machines. I'll tell you more about these things as ideas come along, but maybe I should just put a digression here. And one of my professors, who's a Nobel laureate at University of Michigan, used to say this. And I think you should remember that because it's a good way to think about things. He used to say a very simple statement. You know this by another way of saying the same thing. He used to say, routinize the repeatable. Whatever you can do one time, two times by hand, and it's the exact way you have to do again and over again, you routinize. The repeatable. Anything that can be repeated by doing it over and over exactly the same way, make it automatic. Automate the stuff. Automate the repeatable. That's the core idea. So this is something you should remember and practice in your life, in your work, in your projects, wherever you do. This is one thing that will help you save a lot of time, money, energy, everything else, and give you the time to do other things which you might enjoy, like thinking, for example, as opposed to doing the same repeatable work over and over again. So automate the stuff, repeatable stuff. Don't do it more than 3 times. If you do something 3 times, you have to take the time to automate. You have to take the time and to become lazy, like some of us like to be lazy. It's a great thing to be lazy, because you people who are lazy intrinsically, like I am, go to the extra effort so that they can become lazy again. So they will go and write code to make things happen automatically so that they can again go back to being lazy. And by lazy, I actually mean, free to do whatever they want, as opposed to getting stuck with a routine task. I think you should remember this. This idea comes from operations management class that I took long ago in University of Michigan. And that I think applies to everybody, routinizing the repeatable. Having said, I want to run the next one more time, because I have modified my path here and not here yet, which I should. So these two multiple places, I need to go and modify the line in file references to path references. And here also, path references. This is the challenge with Ansible, they keep evolving these things all the time. So you need to go back and read the documentation every single time before you run, otherwise you run into errors. So I think I got all the line in file references with the destination called out as path. With that, I will save this particular file and run my play one more time. I am in my current local machine, not the remote one. And I'm going to run my play one more time. And says, do you want to do this action? Yes. Do you want to add Cloud Genius user? I said, yes. And do you want to add the Cloud Genius to super user? I say, yes. Do you want to add the public key to the Cloud Genius user? I say, yes, go ahead. It will do those things, but it will report back green colored saying, I did not do anything. It did not need to, because they're already done in a previous step. Now the next step is to disallow root access. And we want to do this. We want to disallow root access to our own machine, because we now know we can connect to the machine using Cloud Genius user. So I'll say yes to this one. And it will do exactly that. It says, I disallowed. And so here it is. Ansible example changed. Yellow color is indication of a change. Disallow SSH access. So that's a good thing that happened. And I will break this right now. And now I will attempt to connect to the machine using root user. And it will fail like this. SSH root at username, attempt to connect, and it says it's still connected. Now, did I not restart SSH daemon apparently? Or maybe something is missing. Or maybe my play needs to complete. Let's see what's the next step. Maybe this restart did not happen. Maybe that did not happen. So I'm going to restart manually. Or rather, let the play finish. I will verify at the very end. I'll leave it alone, not change it. Let the play continue. So play by play again, yes, and yes, and yes, and adding the public key to the remote machine, we did that, yes. Disallow root access, I say yes, and it as already was. Then I am also disallowing SSH-based password authentication. This action is basically disallowing anybody to use the password by typing the password in. I think that is already disallowed, but that's the action we want to do, in which what we are really doing or accomplishing is again use the line in file module to modify this particular file and say password authentication and say no to it. And that no should be present in that file here. And you want to restart the handler for SSH. And there is one more thing that you want to disable, access to GSS API authentication. That's another method of improving security, to disallow API-based accesses. So that's what I am going to do in the next step. Again, same structure, line in file, and look at the path. In that path, look for this regular expression and make that entry for GSS API authentication, make it no. And then make sure that this no is present. And then you restart SSH. So this time, what I want to be able to do, now that we have almost covered the whole playbook, is I want to break this action and run the play without the step-by-step and let it go. So you will see that it is running the whole playbook play by play, starting from this point onwards. And most of these items are green colored. And this item was a yellow color, and it restarted SSH. And at this point, we have the whole play executed successfully. So now we should be able to see that it fails when you attempt to connect through root login, and it failed. Now, if you attempt to connect through Cloud Genius login, it should pass. And we are in. And we can, of course, escalate our privileges to go root if you like to, or come back out of it if you don't want. Come out of the machine back here and connect like root and fail, and connect like Cloud Genius and pass. That's the exercise we did. Now let's think about what just happened. I will quit this terminal and look at this user retry file. That user retry file is an indicator of anytime you have a playbook fail, this file gets created. It's basically a way of Ansible to tell you that the failure happened in that particular host. You might have a bunch of hosts here, like a long list. So it is helping you identify where the failure happened by this retry file. You can basically delete this for now and move it to trash. You also saw that I used this Ansible configuration, and even though I had this true everywhere, it did not give me any deprecation warnings, which is nice to know that our user YAML is up to speed with the latest expectations from Ansible software. Next, I have this host reference, which looks like this example. I'm going to make it a little big and look at that file one last time before we change topics. There is a name of the machine. There is an IP address for that machine. There is a user defined root and the private key reference. There is a Python interpreter version number 3, Python version 3. And this user is, remember, it is root right now. And so remember that root. I'm going to save this and come back here in the command line, go to the folder again and run the play one more time. What do you think will happen? Any guesses? I am going to run the play one more time. What do you think will happen? Any guesses? You know idempotence, right? So basically nothing will happen, right? It will do the same expected outcome that you expect.
Last, can you hear us?
Is that right?
I don't think you can hear us.
It's a trick question.
I don't think so
it's
either.
It's a trick question, and I'm going to point out the trick right here. The trick is in your face. It's highlighted right there. Now, with that having called out, I'm going to ask you this question again. What do you think will happen? Otherwise, most of the time you run the play and you run the play again. It just accomplishes the same outcome that you want. It will accomplish the same result that you expect. And that is what I would expect also. However, I have highlighted the word root in that ABC file, which is our host references, to make the connection as a root user. Now, with that clearly pointed out, what do you think will happen when I run the play again? What do you think should happen with the root user? It should fail. right? You saw me do this step here, and it fails. So this play should also fail. Yeah, this play should completely fail because the root user is not authorized to connect. And you can now see the failure happening. I'll run the playbook again. And it failed. It failed because root user is not authorized by the machine to get in. Because we said so in the first attempt to run this play, is that, hey, only Cloud Genius user can come in, no root user. So what do we do now? We have to go change that thing, root, to Cloud Genius, and save and close. And then come back here, and everything will be just fine. And keep running the play over and over again. It will gladly do nothing for you and come back, report, I did nothing. So great, thank you for doing nothing. And that's expected, right? It says, I did everything okay, nothing changed, nothing failed, I did nothing. And yeah, the machine is exactly how you expect it to be. Play it again. It plays, it runs, and it does the same exact output, which is it wants to make sure that your root user cannot connect like this, fail. Your Cloud Genius user connects, no problem. That's how you want, right? Let's go modify some things. For example, I will go to the SSH folder. And there I will modify my SSHD configuration by hand and hack it. How do I hack it? Let's go do some exotic stuff. So say permit root login right there. It is saying no. I'm going to make it yes. And delete the no part. So I say permit root login, save. And I need to override this. So override. Oh, I need to go as super user before I even make a change to that configuration. So I need to quit and become the super user first, and then go VI SSHD configuration, and then look for root login or password authentication. The password authentication, it says password authentication. I'll say yes. And also on the top, there was this thing called password authentication. Yes, I did that. And what else I want to hack? I think that should do it. That should illustrate the point. So permit root login, I should make it yes. And so I made that permit root login yes, and I said password authentication. I also said yes. Where was that password authentication? Right there. Password authentication, yes. I made those changes. I want to save this file and run my service restart. So sudo restart my SSH service. So that service restarted. And now I come out of it and attempt to log in as root user, and I succeed. Okay, now I will do some further modifications. This succeeded because I modified the configuration and restarted my SSH service. What I will now do is run the playbook one more time. You see right now I am able to connect like root because I modified the machine configuration by hand. I come out. And now I will run my play one more time. You will see it will go and exactly change that one thing that I hacked. Maybe there are two things I hacked. It will change both those things. So here it is doing that, those two things. Ansible example, disallow root access. It did that. This part. It also did this part, which is to allow SSH password authentication. And then it restarted the handler and changed. This third change is basically about the restart. This restarting the service. So it did exactly correct the hack that I made by hand. So now if I attempt to log in as root, it fails. I attempt to log in as Cloud Genius, it succeeds. Now you get the point around how we are playing with the same idea that we did before with Chef. Different way of working with Ansible, but accomplishes the similar kind of outcome. Different example, just to give you a flavor. And I want to ask questions for now at this moment to understand, and maybe we take a break after the question answer section. So go ahead if you have a question about what this thing just did for us, how it is different, where we use one versus the other. There is always more about Ansible and always more about Chef, and you can go on building on what you want to accomplish. I'm basically introducing these topics to you right now.
Nilesh, can you hear us?
Said, I would like to call out one more resource that we will play along in another Ansible example at some point. That resource is like the supermarket in Chef. So you know supermarket here, supermarket, where you can find a cookbook, and you can find any cookbook you like. Say, for example, the Docker cookbook. There should be one, and it's right there. And so this cookbook will help you set up Docker on any machine that you like. You just need to use this cookbook. Either download it from here, or go to GitHub and use the source code, or you can go and use Burkshelf by adding this line to your Burks file. That's how you use the Docker cookbook. Similar to this, there is a playbook, place to store playbooks. What is it called? It's called Galaxy. It's called Ansible Galaxy. And in that Galaxy, where you will find here is a location where people contribute and share their playbooks. And you can, of course, log in here with GitHub login, or you don't even need to log in. You can just say there is a chat question coming in. Chat question, can you hear us? 5:32. That means right now. That was James typing, can you hear us? No, I did not hear you, James, because you were muted when you were speaking. So I'm going to unmute you. And now you can speak.
Hello.
James. Hi.
We can talk.
Hello. James?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we were all talking to you in the
I cannot hear you. No.
Yep.
I think something specific to your machine configuration. You want to maybe eject your USB headset and put it back in?
That's funny.
Or something like that?
It's you, buddy.
To make sure you're heard.
Hear each
But
other.
I cannot hear you.
I'm sending him a chat.
This Galaxy thing that you're
Okay.
looking at, there are lots of authors that write playbooks, and they have prepared those playbooks and they have contributed to the Galaxy, and you can explore and find out a variety of ready to use playbooks provided here. For example, let's go search something. Where's the search function? Yeah, they don't have it. Oh, there is. So in here you will find you can search for the Docker playbook. And there is this playbook called Docker, by the way. There are lots of Docker playbooks. So here is one, here is another, lots of them. So which one is the right one? There is no such thing as a right or wrong thing, but it's the one that that you like, happens to be the right for you. Various people will contribute multiple pieces of open source ready to use components like the playbooks here for Docker. So what I would typically begin looking at is the download count, or the popularity, or how many stars they have here, or how many people are watching it, how recent is the last commit, and also who else is contributing to that. If I know these people, say, for example, this particular Ansible Docker collection that I have here, if I go look at this Mongrelian Docker, let's go see what that GitHub repo looks like and who are the people that are forking it and how many contributors in that creation of this particular role for setting up Docker, and is the documentation available clearly that I know how to use it. And so there is an example playbook available that I can maybe use. So what I need to do is, if I want to use this playbook collection from the Galaxy, I would like to configure my collection of servers and So I want to make sure there is some audio problem going on. Apparently, James is saying that, Nilesh, can you hear us? I say, I cannot hear you, James. We can hear each other. You are the only one that cannot hear us. Interesting.
Si, senor.
Aha. My problem. I was unable to hear you because of my speaker was muted. Ouch. So I could not hear. I muted myself because it was for a previous something before the session started. So now I can hear everybody.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Good. All right.
This is cool. James. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I just had muted my machine, and thank goodness my voice was going on. So yeah, question, please. Yeah, if there are questions, please go ahead, or I will finish this thought on using this particular Galaxy Playbook collection. So like
go for it.
That you're looking at in this example, that I came to this location by searching for it in the Galaxy. So back here, we were at Galaxy, we looked at search for Docker, and we found these examples. The biggest number of downloads I found was here, Galaxy download count 5136. So that sounded interesting to me. I can go there, click, and then go to the GitHub repo, look at my fork count, look at the number of people contributing, look at the documentation available, and see whether I can use this very easily. How do I use this? Actually, it's very easy to use. What I need to do is pretty much like this. So I need to specify my hosts. So my host was, in our example, Ansible example was the name of the host. So I need to basically call out all the machines I need to have Docker configured, and then assign them a role called Mongrelian Docker, and invoke the play. It will automatically grab and do everything that you expect. So my playbook that I will write will be as simple as this. That's it. Everything else is done for me in this particular role by this guy, Mongrelian. This person, Carlos, is created a role for us to use. That role is available here for us to incorporate. We can apply this role simply by taking the download from that location, putting it in our roles folder, and then invoking the play in as simple as this, just 3 lines. When you invoke that play, the Mongrelian Docker code will execute on these servers. And as a result, your servers will have Docker capability. That's the scenario that I'm trying to describe. What this does is you can always go back to this Galaxy that I mentioned here and find out ready to use contributions prepared by a bunch of people on the planet which use Ansible. You can just search for whatever you like you want Apache, there is an Apache play. You want Nginx, there is an Nginx play. There you want MySQL, there is. So just name anything, there is a play for that available. And I think I need to cut down on my keywords, and there is MySQL. And so this is how you basically use it in terms of ready to use playbooks constructed in form of a role that you can apply to a collection of machines to simplify your work, to cut down on the work that you have to do. And of course, you can modify the play like we will eventually. Having said this is similar to you going to supermarket and grabbing a book from here, like we did in the previous example. We grabbed an Nginx book from here and used it in our exercise. Similar to that is this Galaxy idea. Every software will have such a collaboration venue where people will contribute open source components and share and help each other out. That's the game. That is what open source is good for. Having said, still time for questions, and then we'll start a short break and resume with Chef. Questions, please. And yes, I can hear you.
So, no, Nilesh, this is Tammy. So, I know this might seem like a strange question, but like, say you had a file like the SSHD where you were where you changed the permit root login from no to, or yes to no, or whatever. Like, what if that permit root login was in the file twice? One as an example with a comment. Will it change just the first one, or will it change all of them?
I don't know. Let's find out. Let's do it. So here we go. I am connected to the remote machine. I am going to go to sudo. I'll go to that location. I think it will make only one instance of that entry. Let's go play with it. So SSH and then sudo vi sshd configuration. And here I'm going to look for this particular thing that you had in mind. Let's say permit root login. Right? There is this line entry called no, right? I want to make it yes to make a hack. And so I hacked it. Now you want this line to be twice, right?
Yeah,
so,
and one with a comment in front of it. Because sometimes like in our files, like it lists a bunch of examples at the top of the file. And if it just hits that first one and changes it, then we're not really doing anything.
Yeah. So let's go. I want to make sure your hack scenario is in good place. So is that how you want, or you want a comment somewhere? Or where?
Yeah, put a comment on the top one.
Like here?
Yeah, there you go.
Something like this?
Sure.
Okay, so save it.
Yep.
And so I have modified it to be yes. And this is also yes. Or maybe just to further make it muddy, I will make it no.
Okay.
And let's see how it goes, right? Yeah. So there we go. I deleted that to be no. This is yes, and it's confusing. There's a comment. One is not a comment. All those things, right? So now I will predict the outcome. The outcome will be that this line will remain as is, will not be touched. This line will become no. Now let's play it. So I'm going to come out of it and then come out of the machine, back to my local computer, and run the play like this and watch what happens after the fact. So we'll run the play, finish it off, go to the machine again and examine what it did. As you remember me say, it will leave the comment line alone and just ignore it.
Okay.
It will modify the yes to a no and correct it. Let's go check it out now. So I'm going there. I am going to my SSH folder, and then I modify my SSHD config, SSHD config, and then I'll go and look at my hack. And there it is. My comment line is still saying no. And you see that this became no. This was left alone. This line was left alone as is. Nobody cares about it. It's a comment, right? It was ignored. This was
power
yes.
of regular expressions there.
Yes, exactly. Now you're talking absolutely. The point is it is a regular expression. Let's go see the regular expression. And let's go see the root login. Regular expression is right there. So now this is what the operative part. This caret will force, this particular caret, line number 33, will force the behavior of ignoring anything else in the comment section. This caret will look at the line that begins with the letter P and goes on like this, And then whatever is there in that line in addition to this particular string to begin with, whether it is yes or no or monkey or whatever, it doesn't matter. It will make it no. Let's go to one more example. So I am going to leave it alone, write this like quit and go hack again, here, and go to that location and then go one more hack to just clarify the understanding. So here is permit root login. So that's a comment. Now here I'm going to make it twice. One is a yes, one is a no. And that's confusing, isn't it? Confusing to a human. What do I do with it? Permit root login yes or permit root login no? This is like ambiguous to begin with by definition. Now we'll save this file as is, ambiguous. And just to clarify, restart the SSH daemon one more time. So sudo service SSD restart. And you see SSHD did not complain, even though there was ambiguity. You saw the ambiguity right here. And there is ambiguity still there, yes and a no. What do I do?
Yeah,
Now
just
let us
read
see
that.
what Ansible will do for us. So with that understanding, we have ambiguity in place. We leave it alone, and then come out of the machine, come back to our Ansible example, and then run the play one more time. And let's see what happens. So it is playing. It did nothing. And so it did nothing because, let's go examine whether I can say it did nothing or not. Let's go check it out. So SSH again, back to the machine, and then go to the right folder first, and then edit that file and look at permit, and you have a yes and a no. The permit root login no was left alone. Yes was left alone because the second item, which is later on in the sequence in the write-up, overrides any previous value. So the previous value of yes was already overwritten by this no, so it did nothing. Now, if you change this to something like a DDP, like that. So you know first and yes later on. Let's see what SSH will do. So I'm going to save this file and update my service. Now I just made SSH access to yes effectively. So what was that permit root? What was the variable we modifying? I forgot. Permit root login. Okay, so yeah, quit. Now quit again and come out of this machine and attempt to connect with a root login like this, and it did not allow. So this is something that we have to go and understand what Ansible will do, and also understand what SSH daemon does by default behavior if there is ambiguity in the file. So first, for right now, I'll just run the play one more time and see what it does. We'll observe it. We'll also go and study the SSH documentation about what the behavior would be in case of ambiguity in configuration. You will notice that this guy, Ansible, fixed it. You can see that it changed something. And we will go to the machine again. And permission denied for the root user because it was disallowed. Now we will go and connect to the machine like Cloud Genius user and examine in the right location first, and then go and edit that file and look at permit root login. And it says both of them are no known. So this is also no, this is also no. So the double entry, it made sure that you accomplish the outcome you expect to happen, and it left the double entry alone, which is also fine. This is ambiguous to some extent, at least it's redundant, not ambiguous. It is redundant. It is twice. This is comment. I can ignore this part. This is a redundant entry and therefore ignore. But it is not ambiguous. It is very clear that permit root login is a no-no. And therefore, if you now attempt to log in as a root user, it fails. You expect it to fail. Log in as a regular user, it works. And I quit. And I quit again. And that's what you notice, which is exactly in line with what we expect Ansible to do. And it did what we wanted. And I think I answered your question more importantly.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Okay, great. Next question. Well, then we should take a break. If there's no question, we'll just start a break timer. Timer for 10 minutes and let it start. So it started. So I am truly looking like an alien out of space today. as you can see. With just my head.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah.
Was that green? What color shirt are you wearing? Blue or green?
I guess you can guess that it is a green shirt.
Okay, green screen. Okay.
Yeah, it is a green screen. I've been meaning to do this for like so many days. I've tried it, and sometimes the face will not look right, and now I can just make all magical.
Your glasses are messing it up a little bit, but otherwise it looks pretty good.
There's some green tinge here apparently, so sometimes my mustache or something else kicks in, makes it fun.
Yeah,
but
as well.
I like this. I really like this, so I am going to look at it myself a little bit by stopping my projection a little bit. Because I don't get to enjoy this view, so I need to see that view. So let's go see it. Share my screen. There we go. And now oh man, this thing is, see what I'm inflicting you to see and watch as I talk can be crazy. And so, yeah, fun.
At least you're not afraid of heights, man. That's pretty far up there.
Is that? Really? Well, let me come down on the ground. And I'll choose a different virtual background. Maybe I'll go to India.
Okay, that's spooky.
That's what we do in break time. Okay. So the one without any background is like this.
Nice.
So the funny thing I noticed is that this blue chair that I have here, this blue chair is kind of hidden away, which is, and this Levi logo also gets hidden away, which is, I don't know how they're doing it. This should actually show up as Levi's. This segment should show up through and through. And with my head and my hands and the Levi logo should show. It did not, does not, don't know why. My chair segment should also show up occasionally when I move around, but that doesn't happen. Whatever. Yeah, it's over processing in the software, I think.
Go take a break, Nilesh.
Yeah, I'll come back. Hey guys, I'm back.
Howdy.
Hey guys. So I think Brian, who is in our boot camp, he needed to go to his what is called grandparents' place, and so he's not here today. And I think we are getting together tomorrow, if you remember that. Tomorrow, all of us. There is a chat message here apparently. You cannot hear any of us. That's what I think. Yeah, that was my problem from my microphone. My speaker was muted. So yeah. So what I was saying is that we are getting together and Brian cannot join us. So we have to maybe do another get together later on. But since most of the people seem to have agreed to get together at this location for tomorrow, I think I want to double check and make sure that you have this on the calendar, which is this get together at that location called Doe Zone Dumpling House at Redmond Town Center. So Doe Zone Redmond. That location is where we are getting together. I just want to make sure that you are able to come and that you are coming at the time we want to get together is what?
6? Wasn't it 6?
Correct, 6 o'clock. And that's the location. If you need driving directions or anything like that, you should be able to, Google or Google Maps or do whatever you like, or you can call me. I am putting my cell phone number, which is not published, but you have it. So that's how you can contact me. Of course, my Slack chat will run, and you can call me if you get stuck or something. I will be there at 6 o'clock to see you guys, and we will have another get together later on when Brian can also join. I think Brian had some family situation to deal with, so he is traveling right now, and so he will be missing by the way. And everybody else, I think most of you have already indicated yes. So I look forward to seeing all of you face to face in that get together in that location, which has only 1 star. What? Maybe the 4.3 review. So it's a decent occasion, not super fancy, but there are apparently reviews, and 4.3 out of 5 is a good review, I would say, generally speaking. I hope you like the food. Okay, let's move along. So this machine that I have started, I am basically done with that machine. So what should I do with it? Destroy. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is kill the machine before I move on. So destroy, go bye-bye. The machine is dead, and I can move on, which I did. Now, we just did this Ansible exercise to get us a flavor between differences in Chef versus Ansible, just to get us started thinking about what may be the right vehicle, right tool of choice for you for a given project. Again, I would like to reiterate the fact that it's not really about you. It's about your customer. That's what drives your choice of tools, your choice of technologies, languages, projects, whatever. It is driven by the customer. What they need is what we should be doing. And so if it is not Ansible, if it is not Chef, it is something else, you go do that, because that's what matters. It's about them, not about us. With that said, let's get back to what we were doing in the previous exercise the other day. The other day we were focusing on getting our, so I need to save this. Let me close it out. There are a couple of changes I made in this exercise. What I should do is just take those changes, copy that into GitHub so that you don't have to deal with those changes that I just made by hand as I was reading through the documentation. So I should take this change and put that in the GitHub location before I inflict that trouble on you. So here is the GitHub location where I'm going to modify that file and say, you know what, get rid of all of this, put this in place like that. And that is the updated file that I am going to save in GitHub. So now you have that history where I just updated that particular playbook play, and you can notice that I changed my password, changed the path reference, another path reference here, another path reference, another path reference. That's the change in the way you write playbook that is being enforced by by Ansible in the new way of writing things. I also made a modification to the host configuration in the host file, where I am using the name root to begin with. And later on, I modified to be Cloud Genius. I also made one more change in that file, which was to make sure that all of us are using Python 3, or rather asking Ansible to use the Python 3 interpreter. This is a change that I also made. I want to make sure that this change is propagated to you through that Git repository. So I am doing just that, pasting it right here and sending it over to GitHub so that you have it. And that change I committed. So you have that change coming to you as well. You can see that in history, I just modified and added this particular portion and modified the user Cloud Genius back to root as we begin the exercise. And then let's see if there is another change in the third file, which was the Ansible CFG. And I don't think we have a change right now, but let me tell you about the change that is going to come in the future, which is not happening right now in Ansible 2.3, but in Ansible 2.4, which will come, maybe at least we don't have it in our workstation yet, but that change will happen. You will see that it will enforce that change on you and make sure that you modify the host Ansible CFG configuration. The change expected will be something like, I'm going to make that change for you to show you, and then not save it. Where is that? Ansible CFG. And the configuration file that I want to modify, and I want to edit that, and the file should look like inventory. This change is coming in Ansible 2.4. They want you to use the word inventory as opposed to host file. So I'm not making that change right now because your virtual machine does not have 2.4 yet. But the next iteration of virtual machine will have it. So in that case, you have to make this modification later on, not right now. So I'm not saving it, changing it, leaving it as it was to begin with, host file. But that line needs to be changed later on, not right now. When you get Ansible 2.4, that's when you change. You can also make subtle modifications to this file, which are not critical, and those we did. And those were, edit the file again. Why doesn't it edit properly? Hold on, edit the file again. Yes, please, edit. And the changes I did was true and true. Those are deprecation warnings you want to receive so that you are, basically keeping your Ansible code in a clean state, and you want to catch up with all the changes Ansible is making. So I am marking them as true, but leaving this host file as host file, not changing it right now. But I will eventually change this to inventory, not right now. Having said this, example has been up to date, updated with the Ansible 2.3 references, and the link is right here for you. You should be able to play that exercise yourself, no problem. Having done this, let's get back to our lesson sequence here, which is using Chef server from chef.io. So this company called chef.io gives you a free server, a free Chef server, not just any server, Chef server. It is available from this location. This company provides it as a location called manage.chef.io. And that's the service. You should have an account created. And I have one already. I'm logging in. That's how you log in. Once you're in, there are a couple of things that we need to grab from this Chef server in order for us to use that Chef server. There are a couple of things we need to access. And so that is what I'm going to get from that Chef server location. What I need to do is I'll describe what I need from there, and then I will get those things from that computer. By the way, when you are logging into that Chef server, I strongly suggest to simplify your life and use the Firefox browser inside your virtual machine to log on to the Chef server. If you don't do that, that is okay, but it's going to make life difficult for you. So to simplify your life, I suggest dealing with the Chef server inside the Firefox browser in your virtual machine. The reason is like this. Manage dot. You can go to this site directly also, no problem, or from outside from a real machine. But I would rather go do it here because I want to download a bunch of files from that Chef server. And while doing that, I want to make sure that the files are already in the VM, in the virtual machine, as opposed to my Windows or my Mac. If they show up in my Windows or Mac in form of a download, you will have somewhat of a hard time unless you know how to do it. You will have some difficult time moving files from your physical computer to the virtual workstation. I think you can cut that burden by just downloading it right here. Now in this location, once you log in, it will ask you to create an organization to which you belong. You don't have to belong to an organization because you can create one for yourself. So if you don't, like most of us, I don't suggest that you put in your name of your company like IBM or Microsoft or Boeing or whatever. Don't do like that. They are taken. And for our exercise, we are basically running as an individual owning a company. So think like that and you form your own organization. In my example, I have created an organization by the name Classroom. That is the name of my organization that I have created. You can see that in the URL portion. You can also see it here, that I have several organizations and I can, delete some of them, create and all that. But I'm going to use this organization called Classroom for right now. Once I'm making sure that I'm in the right organization, which I think in your case, there will be only one to begin with. So you are already in the right spot to begin with. Having done that piece, I would like to go to the administration section. And in here, what I want to do is select my correct organization one more time, like the Classroom organization, for example. And then the action that I want to do is to download a bunch of stuff. That bunch of stuff is readily made available by this Chef company for us to be able to use the Chef server. And it is more than just the login and password. We know we have a login password and I signed in here and all that. But it's beyond that. We need some additional stuff that we can use ready-made in form of a kit available to us that these guys have created for us. They're giving it to us. And that is what I want to be able to download in the machine, in the virtual machine directly. So in the Firefox browser, log into manage.chef.io, go to the organization that you have in mind. Like I have this Classroom organization. Go to the administration section and then select your organization here. Don't go to the other organizations you might have. Just the one that you want, Classroom. Once you are there, you go to the left segment here and look at this button called Starter Kit. That kit is what I have in mind. I want to get that kit. So I'll say Starter Kit and then download Starter Kit. That's what I'm mostly interested in right now. For those of you who want to further go and explore what Chef does for you and your company, you want to take some training dedicated to Chef, this company provides some training right here, Learn Chef. You can absolutely take that if you like. It's there. So, but I want to focus on download Starter Kit. So I will grab the kit. And when I'm downloading the kit, it is alerting me with a red prompt. It's saying, are you sure you want to download a starter kit? And this will basically reset my keys. There is another set of key pair keys that we will be using. And I have downloaded my starter kit a long while ago. Basically, I do it every time I run the bootcamp. I get a fresh starter kit. So all the previously downloaded kits and the keys and everything will be broken. The one that I'm doing right now will be the one that is active and functional. So I'm okay with that idea. I say, yeah, I know. I want to download a starter kit. When I click the button proceed, it is going to create a new key pair, a new set of credentials, put that in a zip file, and give me the download package. Hey, here, you take it. That's what's going to happen when I say proceed. It downloads the package. So I'll save that package and do this automatically and click OK. And the download gets to my download folder right there. And here is the kit. I can go click on it. That will open up the downloads folder where I find the kit, and I can right click and unzip, or maybe extract here. I think that's the best one, extract here. That's what I want to do. Now this download has happened. So if I download it again, it'll again reset the key, which is not what I want because I already have the download, so I will cancel. That's the thing to remember is this: every time you download a starter kit, it will reset your keys. Having understood, let's move. So I have the kit here. And this is basically the kitchen, the place to write your desire, the design, the starter kit, the repo, whatever you call. Basically, it's a folder. And they are giving you a ready-made folder to work with. This is the folder. Now we'll expand it. As soon as you expand, the name of the folder will change to something, I think, chef repo. So this chef-starter.zip becomes chef repo after I extract. So I extract here and it becomes chef repo right there. Now I usually like to work in my home location. So I will need to drag this and go to my home and drop it here somewhere. So like that. And now I have this chef repo sitting along with Ansible example and using Chef Solo and Terraform and all those things. So that's great. Close. I still have my downloads folder containing a copy of the starter kit. Do not download starter kit again. If you do that, your exercises will break. Just understand that piece. Having said, open up the command line, and here you look for your chef repo. It's right there. That's the folder I want to work with now, because in this exercise, we are going to use the chef server provided to us, ready-made solution with some limitation for free. And I want to make sure that I'm using that chef server to understand how to operate using that chef server and my workstation. And the important difference here that I think mentioned briefly in the past is something like this, that it allows you the ability to walk away, to go on vacation. So you here with your workstation and your laptop, you produce your design. And that's what this chef repo is going to be, by the way. And in that folder, you write your design, your desire, your idea, or whatever you want. You just put that here. And once you're good and happy with what you have, you send this design over to the chef server. And then you have your machines out there in the cloud number 1, some machines in cloud number 2, M1, M2, M3, like that. Bunch of them. These machines will operate on their own and pull down whatever is needed from the chef server and just maintain the state of your infrastructure. Whatever your desire is that you called out here, like this idea that you have, this person gets the idea. That person can basically take that idea and upload it to the chef server in that example here. Upload it, and then you go on vacation to Hawaii. Just saying. You can go anywhere, but I like Hawaii. So that's why Hawaii example. And then this thing will operate on its own. That's our goal in our maintaining and upkeeping our infrastructure from a perspective of a given application or a set of applications running in form of a service in a variety of clouds for our customer for one given set of project. I want to make sure that the thing runs by itself and maintains itself successfully. And so I want to maintain the state of my infrastructure according to what I desire. And I write that desire down in my folder called chef-repo. And then I push it here. And then I go wherever I want. I disappear, basically. I do my thing. And this thing should take care of itself. That's our goal. Now let's see how we implement that goal. So we'll go to our write-up. And in that write-up is written down in a series of steps to do in the exercise. So,
okay, I found something.
When I said series, Siri thought I'm talking to her.
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, shut up. Yeah. So this using Chef server from Chef.io, that's the beginning point of the exercise. What we are going to do is, I think quite a bit I already did, by the way. So here, what I'm doing in this step is you begin from a clean slate. So you make sure that you are working with a new folder in your workstation. Like I just said, I created a new one. You want to create an account. You want to go to that location here, this location, and you download your Chef starter zip package, and you expand it, unzip it, and you put that in the right location. You can either go to work in the downloads folder or you can work in your home folder. It's up to you. If you follow these exact steps, you will be working in the downloads folder. If you're following me in my exact steps in the video, I will have to maybe match with what I just did. So my Chef repo is currently in my home folder. Here, home user, this folder. Whereas the exercise here is sitting in a different location. So maybe I just match that one to not confuse anybody. So here, I will move my Chef repo location from here to the downloads folder so that everybody is on the same page. And I just go to the download folder and work there instead. So in that download folder, I have the Chef starter zip, which I don't need to touch anymore. And I have the Chef repo folder, which is where I need to be working on. And so my current location is the downloads folder and Chef repo inside there. That's what this write-up says. And we just follow the write-up. No big deal there. We want to examine what it contains, like that folder structure, this folder. What does it contain? So the best way to examine these days is just open up an Atom. And we open the Atom editor, it shows up what it contains. And it's already looking familiar to us because we have seen what a Chef repository looks like. It has those critical things that we expect, like the .chef folder, and a cookbooks folder, and a roles folder, and a git ignore file, and a readme file. This readme file is kind of lame, so I'm going to ignore this. And I'll say even delete that file. I don't care. Move. Gone. Next one, I see that some folders are missing here, like the data bag folder is missing, the nodes folder is missing, and that's okay. We can always create them by hand by just right-clicking here and say new folder and create that. No big deal there. But these are the minimal things needed for that example that they have given us as the starter kit example, is what I want to be able to run on some cloud, on some machine somewhere, and understand what this thing will do for us as they have given us. They have given us a bunch of things. For example, in the .chef folder, they have given a knife RB configuration. This configuration is basically a reference to the Chef server. You can see that it points to my Chef server, api.chef.io classroom organization. This is my URL for the Chef server. It also has a client key. This client key is a key, the private key that I need to use. They have given me a private key called my name.pem. That key is sitting right in that location right here. This is the private key. Again, this is different from your IDRSA private key. So how is that different? Let's go understand that piece. We have up until now talked about two types of keys. If you remember, one of them was the key that you generate using this command, ssh keygen. And it generates ID_RSA and ID_RSA.pub. That's the key pair that you use to connect to remote machines. This is for you to connect to machines. The second type of key pair that we saw was this key pair that Amazon gave us: AWS account, AWS access key, and AWS secret access key. That key was tied to your credit card, and you should never lose it. Otherwise, you are likely to get hacked. That's the second type of key that we played with. Another example was DigitalOcean token, a token that DO generates. Every cloud company will generate some kind of a credential like this token or this secret access, or that is tied to money. So you need to protect that like your money. That's the second type of key pair. First, second. Now here is the third one. This third one has a very specific purpose. It allows you to connect to the Chef server. It allows your machines M1, M2, M3 in your cloud number 1, 2, 3 to connect to the Chef server. That's the whole purpose for the third key pair. The key pair has a public and a private component. The private component is the PEM file that you just saw. The public component is not visible because they keep it right there. You don't give it to you, you don't need it. You can generate it if you like, but not necessary. How do you generate? You just go how to generate public key using public key using private. I did not type properly, but that's the Google search. It's like one-liner, tells you how to do it. How to generate public key using private. There we go. So it'll give you one-liner action that you follow. And here is the action. That is the command. So you basically use the OpenSSL library to get input of the private key, and the output becomes this. So this will be generating a public key based on the private key you provide. That's how you do it. So you don't need the public key necessarily. They keep it in their location. All they give you is the corresponding private key, which you see here is known as the PEM file. This PEM is showing up in your folder right there. This is the PEM file you're looking at. And it is saved in that location.chef folder. This is a hidden folder which has your personal private key and a knife RB configuration, which references your private key like that. The purpose of this is to connect to the Chef server. The URL is also customized to your example. It will have your organization reference right there. Like, for example, you will see I Ride a Harley for James. His organization is I Ride a Harley. So that's what you're looking at in this example. That's the .chef folder. There is a cookbook available here. It is called the Starter Cookbook. It has some attributes and some files and recipes and things like that. We'll see what these things do and understand how they will actually apply. There is also a role available. This role is a starter role. It has my name. It will have your name. This default recipe is what I want to be able to run. This one. And all this particular cookbook does is this writes it one line, says, welcome to Chef, comma, Nilesh. That's all it does. That's the whole purpose of this cookbook, is to write this line, one line in the command line in the log sequence, saying, welcome to Chef, comma, Nilesh. That's it. That's the whole purpose in life of this particular cookbook. It's a starting point. So we'll understand how this works, and then we'll go into complex things. So first, what I want to do is put this on one half of the screen, this whole machine, and like that, and the right up here on the other half, and adjust the font size a little bit. So you can see that this tree shows you the content of the chef repo, which is what you see here, which is what we saw in our atom editor, same thing. And then we want to set proper security settings. These are critically important, not super important in case of certain clouds that do not have this concept of security, but certain clouds, actually most clouds currently do support this scenario. So you may not have seen me play with this example quite yet. Maybe you did, I think you did in the cloud technology segment, we did that. We set up a VPC and we did that exercise, right? You remember that. So in the VPC, we have to have these ports open. So port number 22, 80, and 443, they need to be open for you to run meaningful services in your machines inside a virtual private cloud. So we need to go and make sure that this thing actually is open. So if you're doing the exercise in the Amazon example, you need to go to your default VPC and make sure that these ports are open. So let's go check that. AWS. And log in. And then select a region of your choice. So whatever region you like. I don't know which region I have by default choice, but I'll just pick one. So I'm logging in right now. Where is my login method? There. So here is my login method, and then I will type my password and then my token, and I'm inside. And then I'm looking at, apparently Oregon is my current location. So I will go to Oregon. Remember that I am in Oregon in this region. And then I will go to my VPC. VPCs are available in the networking and content delivery section. So I'll go to the VPC. In there, I will find the default VPC. And this is the case of example. If you remember from the last time I said, do not delete your default VPC. That's what I was saying, is this exercise will actually use the default VPC. So I have one default DVP. Default VPC exists for my account. If you accidentally deleted this default VPC, please tell me. We'll fix it. We'll take some steps to make it happen for you, but it's not super critical. I just want to point out that you can still work around it. It's just a couple more steps. I am assuming that you did not delete your default VPC. With that assumption, I proceed forward. This is the default VPC that I want to make sure that its default security group is open for SSH access. So in that VPC selection, I need to go look at my security groups section. And here is the default security group for the default VPC. I will go and examine what do you got. And here it is, inbound rules, SSH access permitted. Port number 80 permitted. Port number 443 permitted. That's what I wanted to make sure. And I did. That's what is written down here in these set proper security settings. In other clouds these days, even other clouds are getting secure, although I did not show it to you yet. So let me just show it to you in DigitalOcean. They have this concept of a security group like structure. They call it firewall. I think that's the name they've chosen. Let's go figure out what the name is. So the name I think is firewall. What do they call it? Okay, did not give me a name. So I'll go create a, is there a name? Yeah, I'll just create a droplet and see what name pops up. Should be something at the bottom. Huh. I saw it somewhere. There it is. Yeah. So in the networking and firewall section, there is a method of opening up specifically chosen ports for you. And that's what you need to do, is to first create a firewall like that. And this is basically, if you don't do anything, it will be open. If you create a firewall, you need to be aware of the fact that you have a firewall. And then you need to make sure that you are opening up certain ports and closing out other ports. If you don't do nothing, everything is open, which is fine for academic reasons, not fine for real production usage. For production usage, you need to have a firewall in place. So I will create one for right now. I did not have up until now because this is a relatively new feature. So let's go figure out how to use this. I'm going to give it a name. And I'll say SSH access, TCP, that's already available. Nice. Other ports like HTTP, I want to add. And HTTPS, I also want to add. So I added them. And then maybe one more port that I like to use, for example, the UDP port. I think the number is what? Let's see. OpenVPN port number 1194. So the number is 1194. That port I like to use for UDP access for my OpenVPN servers for inbound rules. So this is like a generic collection I like to keep open. 2280.443 in TCP and a custom port UDP 1194 for me to connect to a VPN connection. Outbound rules are all open. Leave it like that. You create a firewall. This is the DigitalOcean firewall. It's a relatively new feature. I just created it. And now you can assign this firewall or destroy it and assign this firewall to a given machine. So you can create a droplet and associate that firewall with a droplet. If you don't associate, things are open, wide open, which is bad idea. Don't keep it like that. Now that this cloud also has support for firewall, make sure that you use it. And so if you are using it, you need to make sure that these ports are open. Having done this part, you can do the same thing in almost every cloud. Will have some method like that. If you need more examples, I'll show you, but not right now, unless you ask me. Next thing I'm going to do is to make sure that your key pair is in the right spot. This key pair is necessary, of course, which is, you know, if you are working with, say, the Amazon cloud, they will give you a key pair to use. They'll generate a key like this and go to Amazon and go to EC2 and you say, I am in Oregon section, so give me a key pair. They will create a key pair for you just like that. But that's not how we work. So you can go that route, it will function properly, but my idea is different. My idea is to not necessarily use their key, but instead create our own key and give it to them. That's what we have done already, by the way. In previous exercises, we have this IDRSA key pair provided to them already. And I will make sure to double check. Double check doesn't hurt. So just import your key pair one more time like this and paste your public key in that location pretty much by going to this location and say, I need to grab my public key, please. So here we go and grab it and copy it and paste and import. So now they have it. They have my public key. I know for sure it is right, this one. That IDRSA is the key pair. I just gave it to them, double check, Oregon region, key pair imported, nice. Next one. What I want to do is get your AWS credentials. You know how to get them. You need to go to Amazon, go to the name, login name you have, and go to security credentials. That's where you will find them. This is the second type of key, like I mentioned here. This key pair is what I'm talking about. This they gave you already in the Chef repo download starter kit piece. That is taken care of. This I just added on to the Amazon cloud. I also have the same key pair with DigitalOcean cloud or just about any cloud. I will give them my key, this particular public key. Now I will do this third part, which is, get credentials tied to my credit card from this company, or from any other company. Doesn't matter. That's what I will do. So I will generate a security credential right in that location, and I will say, okay, create one. So it creates me a credential set that is available right there. I will copy that thing and don't show it to anybody at all, ever. Remember, don't show this to anybody. I'm showing it to you, but I'll remember to delete it because the video goes public. Next, I will grab that copy that I have and place it in the right spot. What is that right spot? That right spot is inside the VM in a specific location called .chef knife RB. That is where it needs to go. And you just paste it for right now like this and save. For right now, this is okay, but we have to modify the knife RB properly. We'll do that in just a second. I just saved it before I lose it. So that is saved, and I can now close this. Once I close it, that key that I have, that I just created, the secret key, I cannot recover it no matter what. It's gone. It is active. I can make it inactive, but I cannot recover the key again. It's only one time that you can see it. And I saw it, I copied and saved it, and I'm done with that copy part. Next, I got my credentials. So I want to make sure that I edit my knife RB in accordance with what Chef expects it to be. So what do they expect? Couple of changes. First thing, I want to modify my knife RB file according to this declaration. What does this do? If you read it carefully, it is basically making a change, expanding the current directory cookbooks folder and including another folder called site cookbooks. That site cookbooks is my way of writing custom cookbooks that I create, that you create. So that portion we have to include before the already existing segment called cookbooks. That's what I want to be able to do, is grab this, copy it, and go to my chef repo, that knife RB folder, and in there, what is this precision mode? Hold on, something happened with my mouse. I'll deal with that later. Maybe I just shut it off. There we go. This precision mode would not go away for some reason. No. Well, I'll bother later. I'll ignore it for now. I hope you can still see the changes that I am going to make in my knife RB. What I intend to make is a change to this line number 9. That's what I intend to do. What I look at right now, it looks like just this reference to cookbooks. And I want to expand it to say a reference to site cookbooks in addition to the cookbooks folder. So that's what you're looking at, is I want to expand this reference to just cookbooks to include another folder that doesn't exist yet called site cookbooks, which means now I have line number 11 and 9 redundant. So I need to delete line number 9 like that. And then I have this new entry that includes a reference to site cookbooks, which is what I just did. Next one, what I want to be able to do is identify if I can get the other segments of this knife RB in the file. So the other segments are a bunch of them. So let's go see that, what it's going to do for us. I am going to make this, see if I can get rid of this by looking at my display settings.
Yeah, unless I'm looking it up. It looks like it's a tablet issue or a pen issue.
Yeah, I think it's a tablet issue, I suspect. Yeah. I am going to eject my tablet. Yeah, I think I already ejected it, but some kind of a driver issue with the tablet. Yeah, there it came back. It was a tablet issue. So I think that's gone. So now here, what we are looking at is expanding our file to include the proper way of writing our Amazon credentials, our DigitalOcean credentials, our Rackspace credentials, like that. That is given as an example here. I am going to copy it as is and take it to my VM and make the VM full screen. And in there, I have these actual credentials that I have copied from Amazon. I need to make sure that I write it in a fashion that Chef expects. And Chef expects it like this. So what does Chef expect? Pretty much like this, like 22, 23, 24. That's what they expect. What I have currently is this. So I need to grab that secret access key, cut it from there, and instead put it right in this location. Secret access key should be in this box. Change this box. So I paste it, and I did not paste properly. So I undo, and one more time, and cut it properly, and go to change this and paste it. Now I save it again. Similarly, change this needs to also change to include my access key ID, which is available right here. So I cut that and put it in place of this, change this, and I save it. And then I can get rid of these 2 lines. That's how you grab the credential and put it in the knife RB format so that Chef understands what you're talking about. The access key ID and the secret access key. And you can also at the same time specify the region of choice. Like I have chosen the US West 2 region, which stands for Oregon. If you don't have this line at all, it will presume and default to US East 1. But that's not my intention. My intention is to play in the Oregon area. So I'll leave it like that, save it. And you can add more providers. So like, you want to operate on another cloud, like Rackspace Cloud, for example. You change this and this from get the API access key and API username from the Rackspace Cloud, put that in that location and this location, and specify the version number v2 and move along. Similarly, another cloud, you go to DigitalOcean, and in that ocean, you look for API, and there is a token that needs to be generated. So I will give it a name. I will call this Chef Exercise, and then create a token. The token is visible for one time. I copy the token right there. This is visible only one time. You need to copy that, bring it here, and put it in this location. Change this for DigitalOcean access token. Change this and paste your token and save. And now you have saved the token. You can go away from the screen. The token will become invisible, but doesn't mean inactive. It is there. It is called Chef Exercise. You can rename the token. You can regenerate the token, but the token you have is active and is not visible. You cannot see it as you can. So that's how you can add a bunch of different clouds, like cloud number 1 and cloud number 2 and cloud number 3, and goes on. In fact, Chef will work with almost every cloud. The limitation is that you need to have a plugin to work with your cloud. So let's see how many plugins are available. What I just said is, I want to clarify. What I just said is, you need to have Chef understand about this cloud number 1 and cloud number 2 and cloud number 3, whatever those clouds are. You need to have a method of having Chef understand and interoperate with these clouds. And cloud vendors are anxious and highly interested in making sure that their cloud can actually cooperate with the Chef software. So what do these cloud companies do? They prepare plugins. These plugins are available in form of knife plugins, to be specific. For every cloud, there is a knife plugin available that you can use Chef with. What does that mean?
Is that rhetorical?
It means Amazon and look at the EC2 service, and that is what they have. So that EC2 plugin is available. You can go and search for GitHub, and in GitHub you search for knife EC2, and you will find it. It's right there. It's a knife EC2 plugin for Chef. You can go to the Chef repository, and in that organization, search for all the knife plugins available. And here you see a knife plugin for EC2, a knife plugin for Rackspace, knife for Windows, knife for OpenStack, knife for Azure, knife for Google, Linode, ACL, Push, OPC, goes on. It's a long list. Knife for KVM, knife for vCenter, VMware vCenter, knife for LPAR, IBM Logical Partitions, knife for ECS, Alibaba Cloud. And so, but you know what? You did not see any DigitalOcean, or you did not see other clouds yet. Why? Because they are in a different repository, not developed by Chef, which is fine. We don't need Chef to be doing all the work. We can always have other people do the work. So there is a knife, a DigitalOcean, by the way. It is not developed by Chef company people, but it's there. And I will be using it. This guy developed it. Apparently he has discontinued it or what? It says discontinued. So what's the right way to use it? We'll figure it out. Should not be a problem. But even though it is discontinued, doesn't mean it will not work. 21 days ago, apparently he decides to stop working on it. Fine. Yeah. So he says, I recommend users to switch to Terraform instead. Okay. You see that? He's making a recommendation. He created this, he's been working on it for 5 years. And then he's saying that I am done with using this tool. And
I am thinking he was paid to make such a recommendation and stop.
you know what? Terraform is open source. So I don't know if he was paid or not, but maybe he was paid. Maybe he was not. Terraform is open source, and so is Chef, and so is all these tools that we are working on. So there is no motivation as such no economic motivation. There may be motivations, but there is no explicit handshake of money. Hey, I pay you, you can say this. That doesn't happen mostly in the open source community most of the time, although there are variations to what I just said.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of friction using knife to provision.
Possible. We don't know. We'll find out. We'll deal with these things, right, as we work along. But apparently 21 days ago, this guy updated his README file saying, you know what, stop using this thing I created, go Terraform. I tend to agree with him, right? I actually tend to agree with him. Terraform is a much better way of dealing with infrastructure, as you will see coming up along. We'll have elaborate exercises for that as well. So, but Facebook uses Chef left and right for everything. And so does Azure. Azure has a plugin for Chef specifically in their Azure cloud. So there are lots of companies still using Chef. And our goal is to understand what tools are available out there and how do we pick and choose. So it's not about one tool, but it's about understanding how these tools help us. So we can choose. It needs to be our choice. So yes, there is this plugin available. We'll use this, even though this guy says discontinued. Maybe I'll stop using it at some point. I don't know. We'll find out. So bottom line here, you provide some credential from some cloud, and there is, of course, a specific way of writing those things down in knife RB. Like for Rackspace Cloud, you write it like this. For EC2 Cloud, you write it like this. For every cloud, you look at the plugin, see what the documentation says, and you just saw this Moritz plugin. What's his name? The DigitalOcean plugin that we saw. GitHub. The one that was discontinued, that same one. I'm going to go there and read the documentation for that. And it is this one. And this documentation will tell you how to write that knife RB pretty much like this configuration. You write, the best way is to put your credentials of DigitalOcean in a knife RB file of choice. Like in this file, you put a line like this. That's what the configuration requires. That's what we are doing. A line like line number 20. We just put a credential there so that we can then operate on DigitalOcean Cloud, and we have given them money, our credit card, and a $10 coupon, something like that. So that allows us to use Chef with these 3 clouds, 1, 2, and 3. The second one I'm not really using right now, but if I want to, I need to change this. I will do that at some point, or maybe I will not. It's up to us. Close, quit. Now back to our exercise. What are we doing here? We modified our knife configuration. We want to now check our knife RB for accuracy. What does that do? Let's go compare that. This is the most critical thing to check, by the way. So I am copying the whole thing and taking it to my VM, opening up my Atom editor one more time and looking at that file very carefully and comparing what I currently have in my knife RB with what I think I should have. So at the bottom of this line 29, I will paste from that exercise and just compare line by line what is different, what is missing. So at the very top, what do we have? Is this line number 3, which is operative, that matches line number 29. So what do I do with 29? Get rid of it. So 29, you go away. What about 28? Line number 4 matches, so 28 goes away. Line number 5 matches with this, so it goes away. Line number 6 matches with 29, so this goes away. 7 matches with this, so delete. And then 8 matches with this. By the way, these lines will be slightly different for you. You will have your name and your organization name in there. So they will be slightly different. I am deleting this 29 again. I will also see that line number 25 matches what I have in line number 9 up on top. This 9 matches 25. And it does. And therefore, I want to get rid of this line. And this is the 25, 26, 27. This is the key reference I have put already in line number 12, 13, 14. So it's okay. Go. And then this is I'm not using, so I delete that. And token is all good. So now my file, I just verified that it is actually the correct way of writing Chef knife RB. With that, I want to save this knife RB one more time and remember to use Control W as the command to close out unnecessary windows. So you have this window open. I want to Control W to close it. And it is critical. Remember this, when you have certain files open like this and you are trying to do something, by accident, you will mess up, like fat finger something and forget. And I see this all the time. People are doing exercises and they forget that this window was open and they accidentally press their hand on the space bar and now they have a space in there. Oops. And then the exercise doesn't work. It says access denied, or this happened, or that happened, and it's a problem. It's a problem. It's a human problem. The way to overcome that is to, first of all, avoid your fat finger, and also make sure to save the file. And when you're done with that particular file that you're messing around with, you close that file by either using your mouse to go on the X button there, or Control W. Close it out. If the file is not open, you cannot fat finger it. That's the way to work around human problems. Having said, I am going to do the next step. The knife RB accuracy is done, checked. What I want to do now is, I am almost reaching 7 o'clock, but I want to finish the exercise very quickly, so I should be able to do that. And let's go next. The exercise almost at the very end. Are we? Not really. Okay. So yeah, I think I talked too much instead of just doing the exercise. But yeah, that's me. So this is what we need to do, is the actual exercise. We have constructed our repository. We have put our knife RB in place. We have made sure that it is accurate. We have generated credentials. We have given AWS access credential secret. We have also given our token. And now we need to actually run the chef exercise to make sure that the cookbook that we have gets executed on some cloud somewhere. So in this example, what I am doing is preparing a structured approach towards gathering all the dependencies that I need. And I will be using Ruby software, Ruby language. So I'm going to create a gem file as a first step. And so in our exercise here, do we have a gem file? No, we don't. So what do I do now? I create a gem file pretty much like this. I'll say touch gem file. So it creates a gem file. It's an empty file right now, right here. And in that empty file, what I want to do is fill it up. What do I fill it up with? Certain gems that I want. What gems do I want? These ones. So I put that in this location, and I can see that I want Burke Shelf, I want Chef, I want Rack, I want Knife EC2 plugin. So I want to work with the Amazon cloud. I want Knife DigitalOcean plugin, so I can work with the DigitalOcean cloud. So these are the things that I want, and I write them down in a gem file and I save and close the window. Back here, I say bundle. And when I bundle, it will go and grab the gems that I need. And it is doing that. And all the gems that I just called out in my gem file are now going to be available. So I can actually use those gems. And those gems are available. I have a gem file lock available in form of a dependency map. And that's what I intend to operate using. With that understood, let's see the next step. The next step is to verify whether we succeeded in establishing our connection in let's say here is me, and I have my Chef repo sitting here, and I have my credentials to the Amazon cloud and my credentials to the DigitalOcean cloud and all that. I want to have a method of understanding whether I can successfully interoperate with these clouds or not. I want to check what do I have running here and what do I have running here without going to their websites. I want to check that whether my Chef infrastructure is set properly, for which I need to ask this question. Hey, give me a list of all the servers I have running in the Amazon cloud, please. So I will ask that question like this. Knife EC2 server list. Give me a list of servers running in the Amazon's cloud. However, you need to remember that I need to prefix this with bundle exec. That's a required prefix for us to enforce discipline. Otherwise, things will not work. So I'm basically asking this question. Hey, Knife tool, can you go to Amazon and find out what do I have? What servers do I have? And you know there's nothing. So it shall come back and say, no, you got nothing. So it is now going to connect to the Amazon cloud and give me a list of all the servers I have running in my Amazon cloud in Oregon region. And here is a long list of servers containing instance ID, name, public IP, private IP, flavor, nothing. Basically, I have a list of 0 machines. I can do the same exercise and run this command against my other cloud, which is digital_ocean. And by the way, they don't call it servers. They like to call them what? Droplets. So we'll call it, give me a list of all the droplets that you have in DigitalOcean cloud, please. So go get me a list. And so it goes there and gets me a list of nothing, because I just deleted my machine in the DigitalOcean cloud. Otherwise, it would have shown up right there as one of the machines available up and running in the DigitalOcean cloud. That's how you succeeded in establishing a successful connection with 2 clouds using the knife command, this command. There is more to it. I think we already crossed 7 o'clock. So I will resume this exercise. I will leave this running as is right now. And what I want to be able to do is remind you to do one critical thing. There's a lot of grunt work up until this point. Lots of little pieces, this and that, grunt. Basically boring work. And so you can cut your boredom by doing certain steps. Here is how I suggest that you do. At this point in the exercise, I suggest that you shut the machine down properly by typing sudo power off and putting a password. Basically, shut down the machine gracefully, shutting it down. Once the machine is shut down properly, it's a great idea to take a snapshot. What does that do? So in the name of the machine here, you go to the snapshot section like this. You have details and snapshot. So go to the snapshot portion and take a picture and call it chef is ready to use, something like that, and click OK. It will take a complete picture of the machine as is right now and preserve it for you, so that anytime you make a mistake, you can just quickly resume to this point in time and don't waste time and effort and energy in doing grunt, boring work, but instead run meaningful steps going forward. So that's a way to preserve your state, preserve your snapshot. Take a picture of the image by clicking that camera button, this one, and taking a snapshot and naming it something logical like this: chef is ready to use. And I've been taking snapshots like, more updates and chef is ready to use. So that's the snapshot I just took. I want to go back to that point in time anytime I feel like, very, very quickly, without wasting too much time and effort. So you can basically create your own images by taking a picture of the machine. This is called snapshot of a machine. And with this, I want to pause. I don't want to hold up on you guys with dinner or whatever your plans are. So we'll resume this going, in the next session, which is going to be on Friday. And before that, we are getting together tomorrow, Thursday, at 6 o'clock, indoor zone, face-to-face meeting. First time. I look forward to seeing all of you. And on 6th of October at 4 o'clock, we'll continue and resume the exercise. We'll do that. But for right now, I will pause and remind everybody that we are getting together tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And the location is in your calendar. You have my phone number in Slack chat. If you need something,
Hey,
yes.
Nolesh, would you like to carpool? I'm like up here around the corner from you, Chris.
Yeah, I can do that. I can pick you up if you like.
I was just thinking, since we live right next to each other, no point in taking two cars.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Yeah, we should do that.
You might want to
Sounds
stop
good.
your recording.
Yes, let's do that. So stopping recording right now, otherwise the file becomes really long for no reason. So stopping the recording, thank you.